I'm also going to welcome on 2 other speakers who have fascinating insights on how to build a community and the power of community from very different walks of life. Our first speaker to join us on stage now is Johanna Maska, who used to work as President Obama's Director of Media Advance at the White House. She quite literally set the stage for history.
Thank you. Thank you.
She's kind of a big deal. And I thought I would be nervous sitting beside the 2 of you guys. And then I found out that Keith Barry is also here, the man who hacks into people's brains. Keith.
Nice to meet you. How are you?
Nice to see you again.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a very busy discussion. We're going to try and get through as much as physically possible. If you do have questions, please do keep them coming in with hashtag DTS18. But Johanna, I want to start with you because we just heard Casey's story there now about how he built his community and the cult following, and we're joined by many members of the cult here today. But you did something similar with President Obama because we will all know hashtag #YesWeCan, and that was trending on Twitter throughout the entire campaign. But it all began way before the Twitter campaign, right? Tell me how you built President Obama.
So, number one, I have to thank Casey for packing the hall, because I get a chance to speak and do my keynote after this panel. So I won't share.
Nobody leave.
But I remember I started for President Obama. Now that you've already brought up age, I'm afraid I'm in your range. So I don't know that all of the audience remembers how President Obama became President Obama. But I started working for him back in 2007 when it was little-known Barack Hussein Obama, very unlikely candidate. The only people paying attention to us were actually the foreign press. Thank you, foreign press. But we slowly but surely built a ground movement, very different, but we were known for a digital campaign, for being one of the first campaigns to use social media. I often say now that we're recognized for that, it started with in-person engagement and grew online. So interested to talk with everyone here on this panel, and thank you for packing the house and for having me.
What is Director of Media Advance?
I figured you'd ask. So I had no idea when I started doing it either. I had done communications. I'd worked in politics already in the Midwest. And they said, you're going to do press advance. And I'm like, what's that? It's like the communications at all of the events. And I was like, okay. So it ended up being that I literally set the stage for history, helped the journalists give access to the events from the beginning of 2007 until 2015. So I traveled with him to 40 countries, to more without the last time I was in Ireland was with President Obama. We had a Eurovision star that met us. Some may remember.
We all remember. It was a big deal at the time. But Casey, I want to ask you, because your YouTube following is almost twice the population of Ireland, just to put it into perspective. You've got a lot of people subscribed to your channel. At what stage did you realize the people who follow you were a community? Was it at the 100,000, or is it now that you've got 9-something million?
No, it's interesting because another talk that I need like 8 hours for is just talking about the learnings of YouTube and success on YouTube. Because there is, like, talking about sort of the underlying thesis of my whole talk today was how technology changes media in a way that's so quick and so new. It's very, very hard to understand because there's no rule book for it. But I uploaded videos monthly for years. I had over 100 million views on my channel, 150,000 subs, or I might have even been hundreds of thousands. It was a successful channel by all means. But the first time someone ever asked me for a selfie was 5 days after uploading or starting the vlog.
Okay.
It was 5 episodes into that. And I can tell you now, 800 episodes later, that people on YouTube don't subscribe to content. And I think there's a lot of truth with a campaign as well in this. People subscribe to individuals. And no matter how good my videos were, no matter how viral they went, it was just a video. And until I made the vlog, which was squarely about me, people didn't know what or who they were identifying with. So my biggest learning of the community, or when I first realized what it meant to have a community around content, is that it's about a relationship that I have. That's not true. I don't have that relationship. It's a relationship that 9 million people have with me.
Yeah.
And I try my best to communicate back and make it a two-way street. But it's challenging, it's unique, and there's very little precedent for it. So it's you learn as you go.
And Keith, we're going to talk briefly in just a minute about the brain, because I know that you hack people's brains, but you also understand how it works. But as I mentioned, Casey's been in my living room. Like, you've been in my living room, and you've been
Super weird.
Yeah, you've been on, not just mine, like loads of people's, but you've been on the Lewis. You don't know what the Lewis is. You've been on the tram with me every morning going into work. And I just wonder, you know, a lot of people, you did a show of hands at the beginning, and a lot of people in this room want to be YouTubers and they want to be social media stars. Do they have to have something to say to be successful? Because, you know, as we'll hear from Johanna as well, that, you know, you're buying into a narrative, you're buying into a personality. So if someone has the personality of a teaspoon, are they not going to be successful?
I don't know. I know a bunch of really charming teaspoons. I'd say it like this, and I'm super cynical and jaded about YouTube's success, which is contradictory to so much of what I share, which is that it is true that it's a fair and open egalitarian meritocracy. Everybody has the same entry point. A 12-year-old kid who's here today signs up for an account the same way that somebody like me signed up for an account when I started mine and I had my own show on HBO. It's the same. So the entry point is the same for everyone, but success is extraordinarily elusive. So when you think of what it might be to be successful on YouTube and you see the YouTube stars with their sweet Yeezys and their Lambos, realize that success on that platform is less likely than succeeding as a musician. Do you want to be the next Katy Perry? Because your chances of succeeding there are the same as they are, or less, or more so than they are on YouTube. Do you want to be a professional athlete? It's the same kind of thing. And I think there is this misconception that because the entry point is an egalitarian one, because it's a fair one, that success is also fair or more accessible, and it's not. It's not. There are 1 billion accounts on YouTube. If you're trying to be a YouTube star, there are 1 billion people in some capacity trying to do that the same. So I would always caution just how gnarly of an uphill battle it is. Mm-hmm. And it's also impossible to predict success. You can look at channels that are making incredible content and say all I have to do is make incredible content. The ones that throw me off are the channels that make garbage content, and they're killing it. And it's like, what does this person know that I don't?
The unwrapping of eggs. I mean, you have kids, right?
I have a kid. There's nobody in this audience under the age of 6. Egg unwrapping videos. Literally a plastic egg that gets unwrapped. There's 500 million views on those videos. My daughter watches them. So no, I mean, the advice I would have is don't do it. And if you accept that advice, then you're making the right decision. If you refuse that advice, then know that it is a battle like no other battle, and it requires a level of commitment that I think most people, including myself, were naive to until they're in the throes of it.
And Keith, I want to bring you in here because I've worked on radio stations that you have come on and hacked the brains of pretty much every colleague I've ever worked with. Yeah. But you obviously have a great understanding of the brain, and what's happening with the influencer culture, and I know you hate that, Casey, but the influencer culture and the YouTubers is that we are spending so much time with these people that they are molding our brains. You know, people use words like gnarly. People from Dublin use the word gnarly now, even though it totally doesn't sound right when it comes from our mouths, because of people like Casey.
Sorry.
Yeah, you should be. We just can't pull it off.
Who's molding our children's brains?
But it's right, though, that the technology that we're using is having an impact on the brain, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, my kids are no different than any other kids around the world. They're 9 and 6, and they just get lost down YouTube holes all day, every day, pretty much, unless I limit it, which I do myself. I think I'm in a strange position insofar as I come from the mainstream media. In other words, most of my TV work has been done on mainstream TV around the world, and people here, Irish people, probably don't recognise or realise that I've done around 150 hours of my own television around the world, including the US and Australia and stuff. And I'm in a weird position insofar as, with the type of stuff that I do very often on platforms such as YouTube, people will call out, that has to be a camera trick, or that has to be edited, or that has to be a stooge. And the problem that I'm finding now is a lot of successful people on YouTube in my world, they're doing all that. They're using camera tricks, they're using stooges, they're using actors, and they're being very successful because the audience at home who are consuming this are being fooled by these guys. So I'm in a strange world where I'm trying to figure all that out now for myself.
Yeah.
Because from day one when I began, I always said I wouldn't use stooges, I wouldn't use any of these techniques. And now I'm battling the world that we're in where all that's happening. And then coupled with that, look, I'm a mind coach as well, and I teach people, that we're in an age. I remember an Einstein quote, that he said, "I fear the day, that we're in right now, where the world is digitally distracted. Pretty much, the nation will be in a nation of idiots," he said, and we're almost there now. We have to be careful with this stuff and careful with the consumption of, like you said, people unwrapping eggs and stuff like that, because ultimately, how's it benefiting our lives? And for me, my utilization of these platforms is to find information that's, kind of interesting for me as a person, but also something that I can learn from. Obviously, we need our entertainment as well. But the psychology behind it, I'm giving a talk tomorrow at the Business Summit in Croke Park, and my talk is about that we have to find silence in the age of digital distraction, and we have to actually sit back for a moment and really think about what we're doing in this world. And I know that Casey, from watching him over the years, he puts a huge amount of thought into his content, and hence the success. And like he said, I think, again, we have to watch and monitor the youth of today, because a lot of them just think they're going to be YouTube stars. Yeah. And as Casey knows and recognizes, it's probably not going to happen for the majority of people. And then they're left with a big void in their lives, and they have to fill that void. So I think we all need to just literally, really think about all the different platforms, think about the children of today and how we manage the world that we're in, because it's a new world, really. It's only in the last kind of 10 years, that's really taken off.
And it's a conversation that we're very much having here in Ireland at the moment, in terms of, should kids under a certain age not have access to smartphones? How do you police their consumption? But I want to go back to something that you mentioned there, Keith, and that is in terms of honesty, because I know that, in terms of politics and in content creation, which is what you do, Casey, how important is honesty with your audience? And if you screw up, do you get a second chance?
Yeah, I think you always get a second chance. I think that Logan Paul's channel has been given...
I was wondering if that would come up today.
It's extraordinary. I know Logan, I'm not bringing this up to throw any shade towards him or anything, but, the whole world sort of was like, okay, he's done. This guy's done. This is not an argument whether or not he deserves a second chance, but certainly, his success continues, which is illustrative of the fact, I'd say this objectively, that whomever is watching his content has chosen that he deserves a second chance. And I think that's interesting compared to some of the bigger television stars in the States or elsewhere that have been embroiled in similar scandals, and they're off and they're gone. Yeah. But when the audience has the agency, the audience is the one who decides we'll give you a second chance or not, it's a very different equation. So your question was about honesty. I believe that honesty is absolutely paramount, because when you remove the filters of TV producers and everything that stands between a creative vision and an audience in traditional media, and you put us on YouTube, and it's people like me or people like other creators, there's nobody telling us what to do. The likelihood of screwing up is much, much more so. And I think the best way to avoid that or prevent that, the best safety net, is just to be honest all the time. Then you're not having to keep track of anything that's not.
In terms of politics, Johanna, because again, there's a lot of talk and a lot of thought process that, President Obama's campaign was the first digital campaign. How much of a hindrance was the whole Twitter thing in terms of transparency and honesty? And, if he made a gaffe at one of the speeches, that it would be amplified 10,000 times? Yeah,
so there's been so much that is important to touch on. I mean, I think your point on influence couldn't be more right? It's you can go out there and seek to get influence, but for what? Or you can have a solution that you're trying to bring to the world and try to bring attention to that through influence. And I think those can kind of be very different things. And especially with some of the content that you see, you're going, okay, what is the solution, or what is our child learning from it? What is that's bringing? I do think that the power of someone to go out there and create content and, for light to shine in dark places sometimes is really powerful and transformative in so many of our communities, because there are people who haven't had the media telling their story, who are using technology to tell really important stories, and that you can't underestimate that power and what it can do. Regards honesty, I think, I absolutely believe that it's crucial to be honest. We had so many different episodes where we found this out, but early on in the campaign, we were waiting in Cedar Rapids for the president to land, and we already had Secret Service coverage because of the threat level. They said, wheels down. Marvin, who was traveling with him, and we're like, okay, where's the plane? And I was, at the rally, and they say wheels down, so we get the press ready to, come interview the president. Turns out, even with Secret Service aboard, he had gone to the wrong airport, about 3 hours away, driving, and so it wasn't going to be immediate that he was going to be there. And now I have all this press that I've been like, okay, he's here, and then it's like, oh dear. And in that moment, it's like, it's going, what am I going to say to them? And truly, I have found honesty is the best policy, and I learned that from my boss, who, once he walked in, because I basically sat there as silent as I could for the next 30 minutes, like, And, President Obama, then the senator, walked in, and, one of our journalists asked him, so why were you late? He's like, turned out we flew to the wrong airport. And,
He just owned it.
Yeah, he owned it. And it's really important. And in fact, we would bring the press in on so much because we wanted them to have the truth, the facts, firsthand.
And so obviously the title of this talk is The Power of Community. And Casey, we have a few questions that came in from members of our audience that I want to put to you now. One of them is from Luke. I don't know where you are, Luke, but hello. So he asked, where do you think the growth of the online creation community is going to go over the next 10 to 20 years? Which I don't know if you can answer because it's moving so fast. But where do you think it's going to go?
I think what's interesting is, and where the opportunity is you're going to see distribution fragment. I think that YouTube's success will continue. YouTube will continue to thrive as it has. It's the biggest, it's the best, and it will continue to thrive. But alongside YouTube, we'll create, I think, more siloed distribution platforms. I look at a platform like Twitch, and it's mostly around gaming. It's exclusively around live. And I see opportunities there. One of the top gamers on Twitch, Ninja, pulls over $500,000 a month, $500,000 US a month on Twitch, playing video games live to his audience. Again, that is an opportunity that if you were to try to pitch to a younger version of any of us on stage, we'd probably be like, that's not going to happen, sweetheart. Get back to school. But I think we're going to see those. And I think right now we're seeing it in gaming and live. And, YouTube certainly has myriad genres where there's success that just, whether it's egg unwrapping or makeup tutorials, which were, 5 years ago, it's just, we're going to see, I think, more definition around what it means to be a YouTuber or a streamer or a gamer than we've ever seen before. And within those silos, within those verticals, will be more and more opportunity.
There's another question that I'm going to put to each of you on the stage. It did come in. It's from a lady called Claire on Twitter, and she's talking in the context of YouTube. She's saying that, there's a lot of big names out there now, but is it possible to break through? And that got me thinking, how do you stand out in terms of politics, and how do you stand out in terms of the entertainment industry? Because we are spoilt brats. There's somebody trying to do what we want to do, and they're louder, or they've more money, or whatever. So, Casey, let's start with you. How do you break through on YouTube, or should you bother?
My rule is always the same. It's like, if you're doing what everybody else is doing, you're doing it wrong. Mm-hmm. If you're looking to what makes other people successful and thinking you can emulate that, you will never, ever, ever find success in a platform like YouTube. Why would somebody possibly take the carbon copy when they can have the original? So I think it requires a truly inventive kind of thinking, and then just brute force. Mm-hmm. I think that, if in the days of television it was one episode a week, or, movies a couple times a year, I think on YouTube, there's such a litany of content that to really be heard and develop a relationship with your audience, you have to constantly be putting fresh content in front of them. So I think if you combine those two ideas, like originality and your creativity, and then just total brute force and hard work, that gives you the best odds. And I see those as not paths to success, but prerequisites for success. By doing both of those things doesn't mean you'll be successful, but without doing them, there's no way you'll be successful.
And so, Johanna, again, in terms of your own career, I know that you use both of those things that Casey just mentioned to get to where you are. But in terms of politics generally, because there was talk of, we have President Trump at the moment, there was talk of, will Oprah run? Is celebrity the new politician? How do you stand out if you are politically minded in today's age?
I certainly hope not. I think that the thing that people forget sometimes is it takes extraordinarily hard work. So people think they can just sit in their bedroom, right? And maybe they use somebody else's intellectual property and rip a minion or something, and then think, oh, somebody will search minions, and then they'll find me, and I'm so brilliant, and that's not how ultimately most things work. I know in early stage Iowa, it was an incredible team of us, all dedicated 24 hours a day. And when I mean 24 hours a day, I drove 30,000 miles in 6 months. And we literally, knew that if we weren't working, somebody else was. We were knocking doors every day. We were talking to people every day. We were going to high school civics classes. We had rock stars out there, which were our high school students. It is extraordinarily hard work to build a brand. And I do think that when you have that in-person engagement and that touch point with those people, you actually build something even more sustainable. Because to the level of do you get a second chance, there has to be some forgivability. And I think when you build just a digital brand, it can fall flat really fast, as opposed to building something really long-term and sustainable.
And so then, Keith, in terms, because you've been, this is not an insult, this is a compliment. You've been around a long time. Yeah. And we all keep being reminded how really old we are. That's all I have to say to you. No, but you've sustained, and you are a key part of entertainment in Ireland, and you are the only person that springs to mind when somebody says, hack your brain. So, how do you think people can stand out if they are, aspiring magicians or entertainers in any way, shape or form?
Yeah, it's a good question. For me, it goes back to what Johanna says. I remember years ago when I was just starting out, and it was a very important moment. I remember somebody asked Will Smith, what's the secret to your success? And this was before the days of YouTube, before he was even acting. He was just rapping at the time. And he said, when all the other rappers are in bed, I'm up practicing my rapping. And to this day, for me, I'm very lucky and blessed that, I've just come off the back of a 3-month tour of Ireland and all of the venues sold out. But that's because I know that there's 200, 300, 400 magicians now in Ireland because of YouTube. So they're all learning quicker and faster and consuming from YouTube. So to stay ahead of those young guys, I'm getting 2-3 hours sleep a night. When I say that, I actually mean I'm getting 2 or 3 hours sleep a night, and that's even with a 9-year-old, 6-year-old. I don't care. I'm out working everybody, out hustling everybody because I have to. And for me, it goes back to loving what you do, and then you don't have a work-life balance because your work is your life and your life is your work. And I very often find in the generation that we're in, when a young magician comes up and says, just like some of them come up to me and say, I've just finished school, I left, in 5th year. They're not even doing their leaving cert because they think they can become these YouTube stars. And for me, YouTube is a platform for them, and it's amazing for them to put themselves out there. But they also have to, I suppose, remind themselves that they've got to love what they do, and also forget about the money aspect of it. That's what I always say to people. I never, ever, for my life, ever have followed money. I love what I do, and I follow what I do, and then money comes. So, I think in the generation again that we're in, people have become very money orientated.
Yeah.
They need to consume all these goods and buy all these things and get all these things, and then sometimes they think if they're on YouTube they get things for free, and and they're just consumer driven.
It's bananas. It's such a strange thing, because again, when you say to young people what do you want to be, they're like, famous.
Yeah.
Okay, but fame doesn't just come to your door. You have to hustle. And Casey, Keith used the word hustle there. And as a viewer of your channel, I know that recently you've been hustling. Despite all your success, you're still hustling to make your new project take off the ground and be as impactful as possible. And you are working pretty much every hour of every day to ensure that it is what you want it to be.
Yeah, it's interesting because I have, I work with a creative partner, Dan, who's literally at the hotel sleeping right now.
Oh, bless him.
Bless him is right. And my wife had to sit me down, and she's like, I don't think you realize. She's like, it's not, you're going to break him. She's like, you can't, like, he thinks it's a joke. He doesn't realize. But I do a 20-hour day at least 5 days a week, if not 6 days a week. And there's usually a day where I'll sleep in and get 6 or 7 hours. And I have a 3-year-old at home. And I think that especially in the world of YouTube, with sort of the buzzwords and the platitudes and the inspirational quotes of working hard, I'm part of this. I sell a sweatshirt that literally says "work harder" on it. It's easy to romanticize hard work, but the reality of hard work is that it is what it is, and it sucks, and it's nonstop. There is no off switch. Like I don't need to work hard. Mm-hmm. Like we could leave expensive New York City and move somewhere more cost effective, and I can do nothing but watch TV for the rest of my life. And I can say that at age 37, and that's a huge privilege. But instead I work 20 hours a day because I love every second of it. When I took a year where I was not focused on YouTube, I was focused on a company, and it was a more regular schedule. I was miserable. It took away my sense of self. It was my sense of purpose. And that's why I preface my whole talk by saying if you find that passion, you're extraordinarily lucky. Because to do that, digging ditches or washing dishes, which is what I did early in my career, it really sucks. But when you love doing it, there's no disassociating your work from your life, your identity, from who you are. And the truth that I've always subscribed to is that you'll never be the tallest, the smartest, the prettiest, or as you said, the youngest person in the room when it comes to being a magician or anything else. But you can always be the hardest working. That's one thing that you have absolute control over. So despite all of those disadvantages, you can always out-hustle the guy next to you. And if you do that, your chances of success, I think, will be far greater.
And I love hearing, because I know that all three of you are hustlers. Johanna, you had a 7-week-old and still went off. And what did you do when your child was 7 weeks old?
I was in Afghanistan. It was the live address to the nation on the 1-year anniversary of Osama bin Laden's death. And so I had directed the trip and got our team there. And most of the meetings, my little one was over on the side. My husband's a journalist, so I couldn't really tell him what was going on. So I was just there. It was the year that we were up for re-election. It was a pretty pivotal moment.
So the show must go on.
The show must go on.
Did you bring the baby to Afghanistan?
That would be a more gnarly story.
I didn't actually. So I couldn't tell my husband where I was going. And thankfully, we have a fantastically trusting relationship because I let mommy sleep and told him I was leaving and I couldn't tell him where I was going. And left him with the 7-week-old and let mommy sleep and went to Afghanistan and back in about 36 hours. So
I can't go to the bagel store without telling her where I'm going.
I don't know what we can have a marriage counseling session later.
Well, I am devastated to tell you all that unfortunately that is all the time we have for.
Actually, before you finish up, the other thing about YouTube and these things is never miss an opportunity. So Casey, here's what I want you to do. I want you to think of a word.
Okay, go. I'm ready.
Think of a word that actually, let's do it like this. Think of a hashtag that you never used before, you've never used, like a random hashtag, but limit it down to just like one word.
Okay.
And make it completely random. Nothing relatable to kind of
totally
like
got
okay?
it.
All right, so can we borrow your flip chart for a second? Because I wasn't really planning this. We'll just use it. So look, I've got my initials there.
I'm so excited.
I've got a folded up.
I'm so scared.
I've got a folded up index card here. Okay, it's just got my initials KB on the outside. But you can't see what I've written inside there, and all I've got written inside is I'm thinking of hashtag. Okay. So whatever you're thinking of, just write it nice and clear there in case we have to show the cameras in a few moments' time, and then fold it up so my initials are on the outside. Then you know I can't see what it was that you wrote down. Does that make sense?
I'm like looking for the trick here. You
Yeah,
know
so
what I mean?
No.
Oh yeah, always look for the trick.
Okay, give me your
All right,
mic.
so just go ahead and write down.
You can't see this, right?
No, I'm going to look the other way, and you keep an eye on me. Yeah. And then fold it up so my initials are outside. Right on the line. Make sure it's nice and clear. I'll look the other way.
As you
He's
may be
looking
able
for
to tell,
cameras and everything.
Yeah, we got to really block this.
As you may be able to tell
What's he doing right now?
from the panic on my face, this is 100% legit. We did not know this was
I don't
going
even
to
know what's
happen
happening right
Definitely not planned.
at all. So
He's gone. I can open my eyes now, I guess.
he's writing the longest word that's ever existed, and I am now sweating. So stay with us.
I know.
Casey, you okay?
Are my initials on the outside? Yeah. So bring it over.
Yeah.
So no, leave my initials on the outside. Hold on to the pen. You'll need the pen in a moment. Okay. So I want everybody here to see. You can't see through it. Joanna, do you know what it is that you wrote inside?
I have
you any
no
idea?
idea.
Oh, grab the pen again. Grab the pad again.
Okay.
Do you know what's inside here?
No idea.
Okay. Look, I'll just fold it up like this and like this. You put your initials on it again. Okay. All right. So.
This is going to be on eBay in an hour.
Yeah, whatever. So here's the idea. That's a hashtag you've never used before. I'm not going to get the whole thing. I'm just going to try and get the gist of it because this is true brain hacking. Hold on to the piece of paper. Don't let me touch it. Don't let anybody. Okay, look at me. Okay, focus on how many letters are in the hashtag. Look at me. Don't say anything. Just you having to think about that. So there's like 7 or 8. Thanks for that. Okay, focus on the first letter. The first letter in this hashtag. And if you can, I don't know if it's possible or not, but if you can, think of. Are you able to think of a color starting with that letter? First letter in this hashtag?
Yes.
Yes, okay, whatever the color is, think of the spelling of the color and think of the last letter in the spelling of the color. Last letter, and think of an animal starting with that letter. You able to do that?
Yes.
Yeah, it took you a second there, so I'm not so sure. This is okay, I'm going to go with a large land-based animal, quite large, yes? Okay, look at me. Yes? Look at me. Okay, he's a hard nut to crack, so I might not get this, but are you thinking of an elephant? Be honest?
No.
No, okay. Was it orange? Was orange the colour you're thinking of?
Yes.
Yes, orange was the colour you're thinking of. What was the animal?
I was thinking of an elk.
An elk. Okay,
Yeah,
elk. Okay, no, look at me. Look at me.
We have elk there.
Look at me. Look at me.
We have
Forget the animal. Forget the animal.
We don't have any elephants.
Go back to the hashtag. Go back to the hashtag. I'm sensing there's a T in the centre of the hashtag. Is that correct?
Yes.
T? Yes. Yes,
If he
good.
gets this,
Okay, I
this
got
is
the
gonna be
T in the
insane.
centre. Oh, look at me. Look at me. Look at me. Okay. You're really hard not to crack. There's a U there somewhere.
Oh, God.
Yes.
Yes? Wow, he had to think
Sorry,
about
he
that.
said like random words. So I was like,
Yeah. So this is random. If he can't even think of the letters, how the hell am I supposed to hack into his brain? Okay, I don't know if this is.
Do you want a hint? It's a word I don't know if I've ever actually written down before.
Okay, that's okay.
Okay.
No, it doesn't
I'm
matter.
giving too much now.
No,
Just
look at me.
focus.
Okay,
Just
let's
get
do
really
it.
excited.
Look at his
That's
eyes.
it. I don't know if this is it or not, but just imagine this word. Can you convert this word into a picture? Just yes or no. This hashtag. Yes or no. Can you convert it into a picture of some kind?
Yes.
Yes, good. I saw a lot of this going on. Does that make any sense to you? A lot of this?
Sort of.
Sort of. Look at me. I'm not sure if this is it, but I got something like, I don't know if I'll get it exact, but I'm going to go for, it's something like octopus.
You got it.
Was that it?
Oh, no way.
Is that it? Is that really it?
Let's see it.
Show.
I want to see. Okay,
That's what that was,
let's
the
see.
octopus.
Oh, my God.
And that's why I was
Octopus.
scared
There it
of
is
sharing
there.
a stage. Keith Barry, ladies and
Octopus.
gentlemen.
All right.
Octopus. There it is.
He's the marriage counselor.
You guys, that was weird, wonderful, and pretty remarkable. Please thank Keith Barry, Johanna Maska, and Casey frickin' Neistat.
Very nice. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good to
That was great, thank you.